Thank you everyone for joining us. I already see a lot of people joining in. So let's give them a minute before we begin. We're very grateful for such a lovely response for our launch webinar. Let me tell you that we're completely sold out. And I would like to give that credit to some of our partners and stakeholders locally who've really helped us with this outreach. I have a couple of important announcements for the delegates. Please feel free to utilize the Q&A function in the chat box if you have any questions. And we shall take those questions at the end of the event. And if you're unable to answer due to the time, we will send you a written response at the end of the event or following the event. Good afternoon to all those who are joining us from Africa, and a very early morning and a late evening to ones tuned in from other parts of the world. I see a lot of people joining in from Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, and US and Europe. Welcome to our special regional True event for Africa. Today we have with us sustainability professionals from different work streams, energy consultants, facility management heads, procurement managers, and so many companies who wish to know more about this program. So before we kickstart our meeting for today, I'll quickly introduce myself. Though I've interacted with some of you in the past, I am Mihir Thakkar, Director Global Market Development for Gbci, and I look at Southeast Asia and Africa market. Joining me today is my wonderful colleague, Ms. Susie Vincent, Director of Client Services for Usgbc, who will kick us off with a brief presentation about the True program. She'll be followed by a keynote speaker for the day, Ms. Usgbc, and she is EHS and Sustainability Manager, Africa, Eurasia Division, and Gbci plant for the Colgate-Palmolive Company, who will share some great insights as to how they've achieved zero waste goal for their facilities. We're going to close our event with a very exciting panel discussion with some of the very big names from the industry. So after a resounding success of the True program in Southeast Asia, we are all excited to launch this in Africa with a series of events in various markets. Let me tell you, the program and the zero waste community have come a long way, and we have a lot to celebrate. I'm really looking forward to hearing from some of the great speakers today. So stay tuned. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you so much, Mihir, and hello, everyone. It's really a thrill to be with you. I sit on the East Coast of the United States, so I appreciate you wrapping up your day with this. So as I kick mine off, and I'm thrilled. I know the energy of the panel later and hearing from Dario will really get my morning started off on the right foot. So as Mihir mentioned, I am the director of True. Started here in the US and have been supporting Mihir in the Southeast Asia region as well as the Middle East and now Africa. We have a fantastic team who makes True happen. And so I will share a little bit of them with you because it isn't just Mihir and I with this program. Of course, we have a whole organization behind us, and looking forward to your questions at the end. So since 2016, the True program has really grown significantly and supports zero waste efforts around the world. True stands for Total Resource Use and Efficiency. Its acronym showcasing how we seek to instill a more circular economy in which all resources are valued for their highest and best use. The program and the zero waste community have come a long way, and we have a lot to celebrate, like Mihir said. And we're just really excited to get to meet some of you who are now just joining this movement, but have been doing it yourself in the region. So thrilled to have you join our community at True. Before we go much farther, I want to introduce you to the whole True team. We have a combination of team members who are kind of that left L, if you will, capital L on the screen, that work in market development. So like Mihir and myself, Celeste and Stephanie are out educating folks around the world about what True is and how it can help them meet their zero waste goals. And then our team on the right-hand side with Celia in the middle, it's a little sideways T, if you will, are working on the certification operations side. So they're the ones that when you actually have a project that you want to put through True, that will be coordinating that effort, ensuring that highest level of third-party rigor and integrity for your certification. And then our vice presidents, Shah and Vijaya, are leading us as well. Also, I just wanted to give you a quick landscape of the programs at GBCI. It may be the first time you're hearing about True relatively recently, but perhaps there are other programs on this slide that you have seen in the past, specifically LEAD, which has been around and in the market for over 20 years now. And you might be like, wow, there's a lot of programs on here. But as LEAD was in the market and doing wonderful things, we did realize there were maybe a couple of gaps that in the sustainability movement that weren't being addressed by LEAD. And so just as we're talking about materials or waste management today, I'll kind of give you a little bit of background there. So if you're familiar with LEAD, you know that there is a materials and resources credit category that, is waste management as well as material selection to ensure some of those circular products are being used. ARC is actually a building performance tool that is free for all buildings to kind of enter in their data and see how they're tracking, but it's also a stepping stone towards certification. But then True is ultimately the highest bar because neither ARC nor LEAD really will be a roadmap for you like True is on how to achieve zero waste. And so that materials management at its highest performance level. I also think, just because we've talked for a second now about LEAD, that it is worth looking at the history of LEAD as we set our own goals for True projects around the world. So in its early days, back in the early 2000s, LEAD was just getting started. And so there were people piloting the program and learning how to use it. A lot of people were becoming LEAD APs so that they understood the rating system. But then over the next decade, it really grew exponentially. And so we're seeing that kind of same trend here currently with True, that we've been around for, almost 5 years now. And we're looking at those original companies who were doing pilots, maybe one project here or one project there, now saying, I want to do this for my whole portfolio. And it's really that exponential growth that is going to help the True program grow, but not just the True program. It's going to help our materials management infrastructure change and the entire market change. So something that I'm very enthused about, that we're seeing these commitments from multinational household names like Colgate, you'll hear later today, as well as technology companies, but also your small businesses alike that are working in that local circular economy. So you may have heard the term zero waste by now. I've said it probably at least a dozen times, but what does it actually mean? And I think there's a little bit of a philosophical answer there that I'll offer to you, but then we'll get a little bit more into how does True really define this? So when we're creating an abundance or an excess of an unwanted product, that's essentially what waste is. It's things that are left over and that we don't typically need, maybe as individuals anymore. And frankly, that costs money then to manage. So it's just really not a good economic model. But on the upside, it really presents this opportunity to reimagine how we can change and how companies can play a role in changing this. So now a little bit more for a textbook definition. Zero waste is a goal to divert all waste from landfills and incineration by implementing design and manufacturing principles in which all discarded materials are designed to become resources for alternate use. So it's really kind of that first step as we look at building a circular economy. That's what zero waste is. And one of the key tenets of the zero waste philosophy is this hierarchy of highest and best use. So what this really is a system of priorities for materials. When using this hierarchy, the goal should always be to keep materials and products as high up on the hierarchy as possible, and therefore then in their useful loop as long as possible. It keeps materials from being downcycled, where the number of future uses or options are limited. And so I think when I first, was working in materials management, it was all about recycling. And that was, pretty much all we talked about. We didn't really talk a lot about reusing or repairing or reducing. But back when I was in grade school, that was the thing that we were taught, right? To reduce first, then reuse, and then whatever you can't continue to reuse or reduce, that is what ends up in recycling. And so it's really that same premise that we're presenting here. So not too complicated, but it kind of goes again to the definition of like thinking about a product's design or something from the very beginning, and how we can be eliminating the need for us to even be landfilling or doing something that we shouldn't be doing with that material at its end. So some of you might be curious as to why Usgbc and Gbci have a zero waste program. It's predominantly from the heart. I mean, waste affects every part of our communities, and it causes degradation to our environment, undue burdens on underprivileged communities. It releases toxins into nature and our bodies. I think, we are aware that there are these things called microplastics now that have become an unintended consequence of just an abundance of plastic in our society. All of these kind of contribute to climate change and cost not just businesses, but our healthcare systems and others billions of dollars to manage. Unfortunately, recycling on its own is not effectively solving this challenge. While there's a lot of improvement that's being made in different regions for recycling, and it does support clean jobs and it is a good practice, we can't rely only on recycling. We are sadly in a system, and some of these systems are starting to change as the circular economy has become more popular. But where we used to just take, make, use, dispose, and whether we liked it or not, some of that disposal ended up being pollution. And what we're trying to do, is kind of move away from that graphic on the left and towards this more circular economy on the right. So, making something from recycled goods, using it, reusing it again, potentially repairing it before we end up then recycling it to become that raw material for new goods again, instead of going and harvesting or extracting actual raw material. It is that action of the extraction or the taking of raw materials that is one of the most harmful things that has been happening to our planet. I'm sure maybe not all of you are big environmentalists or enjoy the outdoors, but we can't help but see that there has been degradation to our natural systems because of our extractive practices over the last decades. So True was created to tackle this problem and to provide solutions for companies that are trying to move towards a circular economy. The only solution that will get us out of this current wasteful cycle is to move into a more circular system. Our clients love our program because it drives all of the positive income or outcomes you see listed on the screen. That might have been a slip that I said income, but it does provide opportunities for new income sources when we're recycling our materials appropriately or reusing them. There are whole new markets where and opportunities where people are repairing goods again. I think that's something that I grew up, hearing my grandparents talk about how they would call out a repair person to fix something. But in today's society, it's so frequently done that people will just throw it out and buy a new one. And we really need to get away from that practice. So the program with True has seen some incredible growth, as I mentioned earlier. In 2020, we saw, which was kind of a crazy year, as we all know, a 33% increase in our program. So that's quite large. And then so far in 2022, we are seeing continued growth with new project registrations at a pace which we've never seen before. So even our staff, which I showed to you on a previous page, has grown by 2 additional people in the last year, because we have so many more projects that we are needing to manage coming through our pipeline. So where does True come into play with all of the zero waste movement? And I think that primarily implementing zero waste practices is something we all want to do, right? But it might require a little bit of training or new tools to change our current systems. And then we also, know because of past environmental programs that we want to make sure that people are adhering to a consistent standard, that whether it's intentional or not, we don't want people to be making false claims or greenwashing. We want this to be something of integrity that folks can really, include in ESG reporting or include in public statements and feel very confident about that. And so True is the first program which is dedicated to not just validating a diversion rate, but really to measuring and improving zero waste systems by encouraging this adoption of reliable and resilient sustainable practices that contribute to these environmental, health, and economic goals. So the zero waste certification program strives, of course, as I mentioned, to help us move towards a circular economy. And then the goal of all projects participating in True is to divert all solid waste from the landfill, incineration, and the environment. And we have within the rating system, which I'll get into in a moment, strategies that really help you to restructure your systems and policies to prevent waste from being manufactured in the first place. Every category within the True rating system provides opportunities for operational process improvements. And you'll hear me say this focus on upstream, but upstream is sort of that reduce, reuse, redesign, repair piece of the puzzle. It's basically eliminating the waste before it needs to be managed downstream. So a graphic that a lot of people, or an image that a lot of people sort of put out in when talking about our solution for materials in our world is the idea of a bathtub. And so, you have a drain that is, water is going down the drain. Let's think of that as waste, going down the drain. But then the tap is also being turned on the entire time. So even though the drain is open, if we don't turn off the water, we're going to end up with, a challenge. So we're kind of trying to approach this from turning off the water would be the upstream policies, and kind of eliminating all of these materials from continuing to flow into our society so rapidly in a way that they can't even be processed as they go downstream. So this is a quick snapshot, and I won't go into this in too much detail. I hope that we have the opportunity to continue to connect as you're interested in certifying a facility. But at a high level, essentially, there are minimum program requirements required for True certification, as well as an overview of credits. So you need to achieve all 7. Actually, we've reduced the minimum program requirements to 6. We no longer require a base year of documentation, but then you need to achieve 31 out of the 81 points in the rating system. And these are just some of the categories that we have of the different policies or practices or actions and measurements that we will evaluate on your journey to True certification. We say that we focus on upstream, and one of the ways that I'd like to just highlight that is that if you look at the lower left-hand corner of the screen where it says ZW purchasing, zero waste purchasing, and then the upper right-hand corner where it says training, 9 points and 8 points are associated with those two credit categories, and purchasing materials, having environmentally preferred purchasing or responsible procurement is really a foundation that you need to ensure that you're going to achieve zero waste. That again, it's kind of that turning the water off, right? What are you bringing into your facility? It helps you be able to manage what goes out of it. And then training. If any of you have worked in, energy or water, efficiency over the years, that a lot of this is an infrastructure improvement that we can make. There are some behavioral things as well that go along with that. But so much of what we're looking to do with the True Rating System is to train individuals for behavior change, because this is what is necessary for us to be making a difference. And the joy there is that True doesn't really require as big of an investment as would say, completely upgrading a lighting system to be more energy efficient. To be more efficient with your materials in your facility really just requires some human resources, not necessarily a lot of capital resources. So whether you're at the beginning of your zero waste journey or you've already achieved zero waste and you want to continue to push further with your continuous improvement, we have an offering to recognize your leadership and commitment to zero waste. Pre-certification recognizes projects which have implemented fundamental actions and policies needed to effectively pursue zero waste and have demonstrated a commitment to achieving True certification. So it's available, excuse me, to all projects regardless of the level of their diversion performance that's been achieved. It's a completely optional but incremental path to True certification that really prioritizes the core actions essential to getting a successful start towards zero waste. True certification is, of course, hitting that 90% or greater diversion rate, as well as achieving at least 31 out of the 81 credit points. And then recertification recognizes projects for their continuous improvement over time. It's required every 3 years regardless, but some of our projects choose to recertify earlier than that and then actually upgrade their ratings. So like a lot of different certifications, we have tiers. We have True Certified, True Silver, Gold, and Platinum. And so some of our companies begin certifying at a lower level just to get an understanding of the program and how it is implemented in their facility, but then they'll come back and they will upgrade a previous certification level by gaining more credits and doing more higher performance to get that increased recognition. This is just a quick snapshot of our total True certifications and pre-certifications around the world. And you may have heard me say over 350 earlier, but that is the total of projects that are certified and registered. So that includes those that are in the pipeline and not officially certified. So you can see that number is, we have about over 100 projects that are in process of becoming certified right now. And so let's review just a few of those. I will go through these relatively quickly, but we will be sharing this later. So you can always come back to this. And then we also on our website have a projects page with case studies from some of our featured projects that choose to be listed on our website. Our first spotlight is on a manufacturer, an automobile manufacturer, Toyota, and specifically around this idea of moving upstream. So for years, Toyota had been recycling cardboard and wood that they were using as shipping materials for their parts and accessories. But 20 years ago, which is impressive to think that they were thinking like this that long ago, they moved to a returnable, reusable shipping container. So like more of like a metal shipping container that basically has a near endless life. And the very first year they did that, they saved over $1 billion in packaging costs, as well as the environmental impact of 2.7 billion trees. So that's a pretty good relief from all of this, environmental degradation I had been talking about, that they're really ensuring that all of that, wood and paper products are staying in our environment, keeping our air clean. The other projects, I have a few in here that are commercial office projects, but this one is a little extra special because it is not just an office building, but is also includes residential and retail. So it's a 541 900,000 or 900 square foot mixed use building that has achieved true certification. And this is the first of its kind where you're really integrating not just the office waste and the office operations, but working with the residents as well as the retailers in this center to achieve this. Another project that I like to feature, just because it's a little, we think of facilities as being buildings, but the Battery Park City Authority got their park operations to achieve true certification as well. So a little bit of a smaller facility, but again, you think about how we're engaging with the public and how we're teaching them to, put materials in the right bins, or simply to keep materials out of the environment. I sometimes am shocked that folks don't think they even need to put things into a trash receptacle in certain places. So really proud of their work. Here's another office building, which saved $78,000 their first year by basically reducing the amount of the size of the recycling compactor in their building. And so prior to implementing True, they allowed plastic in the building. When they pursued True certification, they said, let's get rid of this material. We really don't need it. We don't need these single-use cups or bottles anymore. Let's move towards, durable containers like glasses or mugs for us to have our coffee or water out of. And it kept 31.5 tons of plastic material out of the landfill or recycling. So I just think that's really a very impressive feat that they've achieved. This is a beverage manufacturer. So it's a tea company that has achieved True Platinum. And this is one of our examples of a project. Originally, their first certification was just True Silver, but they came back and kept on that into continuous improvement to achieve a higher diversion rate and more savings. And again, their case study online shows more about the financial facts, but they were having their waste being collected at this commercial facility more than once a week when they first started this journey. Now, this trash collection only comes once a month to their facility. So think about the cost of that service that they have now reduced, as well as the greenhouse gas emissions associated with that, waste truck coming and taking that material at, weekly to now just monthly. It's a huge environmental as well as financial savings. And then finally, some of you might work in smaller places. And so that's our, one of our companies here, Great Forest, is actually a zero waste and a sustainability consulting firm in New York. And they only have a 5,000 square foot office. So not a huge office building, but they took the footprint that they have within a larger facility and said, let's achieve certification for our office. And now they're helping their customers also to achieve True certification. So if you're ready to get started, I think that one of the best ways to get started is to educate yourself. And we offer something called the True Advisor, which is a professional certificate program. And it is a series of 12 online on-demand learning modules. So it's a course as well as an exam at the end that will test your comprehension of zero waste policies, programs, and strategies, as well as terminology and tools that will help you achieve zero waste. There are no eligibility requirements to participate in this program, and we have over 1,500 True Advisors now around the world. it's very exciting to see this interest growing, and that frankly, you know, we want to see the True Advisors grow almost before we see projects, because we know then that the capacity and the knowledge to pursue True is there within that region. So True Advisors, there's a directory on our website you can take a look at. They range from students to consultants. Some of them work for local governments or within a facility that's pursuing True certification. There's also a lot of entrepreneurship and innovation happening in this space. So we have True Advisors that are, you know, working in that space as well to be solving some of these larger issues. So I encourage you to check out that directory online. One of the other resources that we have through the Usgbc education site are education sessions and trainings that we've previously conducted and recorded. So it's essentially a panel of True project teams. And so what their strategies were and how we can all learn from what they've accomplished. And so finally, I would just say, whether you're a commercial office building or a building product manufacturer, maybe you work in the hospitality industry, True can really support your organization by showing your environmental leadership, engaging your stakeholders, your employees, and your customers, and increasing your efficiency by reducing costs and saving resources. I look forward to taking some of your questions at the end, but for now, I would like to introduce and turn it over to Daria Oostendog, who is the Environmental Health and Safety and Sustainability Manager for the Africa Eurasia Division for Colgate-Palmolive. Daria, I'll go ahead and let you share your screen.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say thanks for attending this event today. Thank you to Gbci for this opportunity as well. My focus today will be on sharing our True Zero Waste journey at Colgate and key initiatives in our plans in Africa. I'd like to start with our 2025 Sustainable and Social Impact Strategy. To support our sustainability mission, we have 3 key ambitions. They are related to driving social impact, helping millions of homes, and preserving our environment. Under these 3 ambitions, we have 11 main actions. We have precise targets behind each ambition to make sure we achieve the levels that will make a difference. The certification of True Zero Waste is one of the 11 actions of our 2025 Sustainability and Social Impact Strategy. When we look at this action in detail, our 2 top-level targets are to have 100% of our global operations True Zero Waste certified, and to build 100% of new manufacturing sites LEED certified. Colgate is US Green Building Council member since 2007 and has been involved in the True Zero Waste certification program since 2017. Let's have a look in the progress that Colgate manufacturing sites have achieved globally. Until now, we have 29 certified sites on either gold or platinum level. 2 of them belong to the Africa Eurasia region, and one of them is Kennelands in South Africa. Kennelands is the first facility True Zero Waste certified in our Africa Eurasia division. In order to achieve the goal, this is our roadmap for the sites and strategic offices for the division. So in Africa Eurasia, we have 2 already sites certified, Kennelands and Gbci, Turkey. Also, we started up the preparation in 2 different sites last year, Boksburg, South Africa, and Casablanca, Morocco. Among them, we have also 1 office site, Midrand in South Africa. So how we are implementing the Zero Waste program at Colgate-Palmolive? We focus on global strategic sustainability priorities for different categories. With the guidance of the management, common sustainability teams have been initiated for both divisions, 1 per each sustainability priority. Specific yearly targets have been set for each priority at each division, but also at each manufacturing site, separately. Also, periodic divisional KPI reports are shared for follow-up. As you can see, the divisional sustainability teams are sharing technical knowledge and good practices across the network of our sites. We also have established a divisional zero waste team with the scope to support the different sites implementing their own program for certification. So as Susie mentioned, there are steps for the certification. Also, we have followed. In order to submit the application, the site is to identify all waste streams, segregate wastes by the type, and record their quantities. One of the minimum program requirements is that a facility should achieve at least 90% diversion rate. This means that 90% of the waste generated at a facility must be reused, recycled, or composted. In parallel, a green team should be created for every site to lead the entire program locally. Finally, this certification is not one-off. Sites should share the annual updates with Gbci of their diversion rate in order to maintain the certification. So how this is implemented at Colgate? We have upper management commitment, which is very critical. The team leaders are certified to upskill them and train the plant team. We also start by conducting gap analysis to review the status of the plant. We organize kickoff meeting for each site and ask them to formalize their green team, their local team for each plant. We support the facilities by organizing global webinars, divisional webinars, or workshops, and sharing tools with them. As you know, some credits are universal to all Colgate sites, so we engage the teams by sharing their achievements, and also we have a shared folder for each plant is able to access to their review of all project materials for the completed ones. How you can join us in the journey to zero waste. I would like to continue some practices that have guided our success in South Africa plant thus far. Colgate Kenneland's green team completed a waste container survey. Based on the results and outcome of this survey, a Kaizen was performed to address the findings of the survey. Teams participated in developing the amount, size, location, and contents of the containers. The plant went to a system of colored bins for the facility. We removed the small personal waste bins in office area and replaced them with the waste bins in the central locations. Also during this Kaizen event, the facility created a process map which identified all areas in facility where waste was generated. The team then mapped all waste coming from each waste stream, ultimately creating actions to eliminate, reuse, recycle, or as a last option, waste to energy. In terms of reuse, the site has implemented a system to reuse bulk boxes from incoming raw materials. We started to reuse these boxes as containers to collect plastic cores for recycling. We also use chip pallets. These pallets are transferred to the production area and reused for the loading of soap boxes. In terms of reduce, also the facility has a vegetation that requires no irrigation. Grass, which is green all year round, is mowed occasionally. To increase awareness, all employees are informed about actions and goals, and the zero waste goals are displayed on the main information board at the plant entrance, also at several locations. Also during an awareness meeting, activity zero waste pledge was signed by all the employees with the leadership team. We often execute physical waste audits or dumpster dive to get up close and personal with all of the waste generated and start generating ideas to eliminate it and to check if there's any recyclable ones in the waste containers. In terms of leadership, management team is involved in various community activities. As you can see in the picture, Kenneland's plant has held a beach cleaning project activity in the past, and during this event, our team collected about 35 kg of waste that was recovered from the beach. Employees also went to Crossroad Hope Center to commemorate Mandela Day in South Africa. The team has also painted the play gym and did gardening for leadership activity. In our brands, we also use True certification mark to promote that a product was manufactured in a True certified facility. So in conclusion, collaborating with Gbci has been a real accelerator for our progress. Through Zero Waste certification program enables facilities to define, pursue, and achieve their zero waste goals, and cut their carbon footprint, and support public health. This is also an opportunity for employee engagement and motivation. For sustainable future, we will continue to focus on sustainability and improve the culture, and we feel confident in our ability to make it happen and encourage you to be as well. So to learn more about Colgate leading with zero waste facilities and other environmental programs, you can visit Colgate Sustainability website, and to learn more about our True Zero Waste journey, you can read this article on LinkedIn. So thank you, and also looking forward to have your questions at the end. And John will continue in the next session.
Thank you, Daria. That was a great presentation, I should say. I'm sure you've inspired a lot of companies today to take the next step towards the zero waste journey. So now moving on to the last leg, but the most exciting part of our event, the panel discussion that has some of the biggest names, as I said, from the industry. And the same is going to be moderated by a renowned sustainability expert. So let me welcome Mr. John Kabuye, who is the CEO and principal consultant at the BESIC Group. Previously, John has served in two capacities at the Kenya Green Building Society as vice chair and the CEO. John is also a first True Advisors, but additionally, he's a lead green associate, IFC Edge expert, Envision sustainability professional, Eco Districts AP, GBCI Sustainability Excellence Associate. That's a lot. In all, John has 18 years of experience in providing professional technical assistance in property condition assessment, asset management, sustainability cities, neighborhoods, infrastructure, zero waste and circular economy, and ESG consulting throughout East Africa. So let me hand it over to John to take you all through the rest of the evening. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Mihir, for the introduction. Good afternoon for all of you joining us from Africa. Good morning or good evening for those of you joining us from the rest of the world. As introduced, my name is John Kabuye, Principal Consultant at BESIC Group Limited. BESIC Group is essentially ESG and built environment consultancy services based in Kenya, but can be able to operate in East Africa. So I take this opportunity to say that I'm excited to be here. I'm very grateful to hear the presentations from Susie and Daria. And I believe the upcoming team of speakers, which comprises of professional consultants and sustainability managers in managerial roles in companies across Kenya, will be able to shed more light on most of the strategies which are going on in here in Kenya, and which align to what True really speaks about. So without too much talk, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome the speakers. I'll request them to turn on their cameras so that you can be able to meet them. And then what I'll do is I'll give them an opportunity for them to introduce themselves, because I believe they can do it better themselves. They will first introduce themselves, and then after that, we will have a Q&A session there. So Jane, Westrup, Amrish, Ebenezer, and Claire, please turn on the cameras. And so I will request our team to introduce themselves. So in no particular order, I will start with Amrish. I can see your camera on. Please turn on your mic and introduce yourself.
Hi, John. Thanks, and thanks everyone. Thanks to the True team for putting this together. My name is Amrish Shah. I'm the founder and principal sustainability consultant with Urban Green Consultants. We've been working in the green building design advisory certification space for the past 10 years, all in Kenya. We're a Kenyan company. And it's been a long journey moving the green building needle along in this industry here, and together with colleagues such as John, we've been successful in doing this. I can now say that we're successfully involved in over 25 green building projects, mostly in Kenya, but also in other African countries, about 7 African countries now. And we're excited to learn more about what the True tool can do to help move the needle along on the waste management side of things, which is often overlooked and a big gap in a lot of our other certification tools. So thank you.
Thank you, Amrish, for your introduction. So now I'd like Claire to turn on her mic and introduce herself.
Thank you, John, and hello, everyone. Really excited to sit with you today. I am in the real estate space, and I've dealt in it for the past 18 or so years, across the real estate value chain, but truly trained as a construction and building engineering and project manager, development management. But I've had a really good stint sitting as a facilities management lead in the country with a name brand company, Global. And we had really good opportunities to experience and actually apply what True stands for. At that point, of course, there was no certification that we could speak of, but today I'm really happy to be able to discuss this with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, for your introduction. So without too much ado, I'd like Jane to turn on her mic and introduce herself.
Thank you, John, and thank you, True Team. My name is Jane Wayaki. I head sustainability and citizenship at Absa Bank Kenya. And for us, I think being one of the first being the first financial institution in Kenya to join the Kenya Green Building Society and to see how we can push and build around green buildings and support from a financial services perspective. Really an honor to be part of this panel to speak about the waste side of it, which I think is something that we are really open to and looking at how we can be able again to support not only ourselves internally from our operations, but also our clients and how we can support them through that journey. Thank you, John. Back to you.
Thank you, Jane. Fantastic. So I'd like at this particular time for Waidera to turn on her mic and introduce herself.
Thank you very much, John. My name is Waidera Mwai. I'm the Sustainability and Stakeholder Engagement Manager here at East African Breweries. And I'm really looking forward to sharing our learnings within the circular economy space and waste management, and getting to learn more from what the rest of our panelists are doing, and indeed the larger audience, just so this can be a learning experience for each and every one of us, each individual, because I think we are here today because we know the effects of climate change and what it's doing, not only for within the businesses and to see what we as individuals and as the private sector can do to further push the needle further in helping us achieve a sustainable world. So looking forward to the engagement.
Thank you so much, Waidera. Fantastic. Now, I'd like Ebenezer Amadi to turn on his mic and introduce himself. Ebenezer.
Yeah, thank you, John. My name is Ebenezer Amadi for the Kenya Private Sector Alliance as the program manager for a program that's called Sustainable Inclusive Business. So we look at several things beyond policy influencing. We look at circular economy, climate change, redefining business values, as well as including the element of inclusion. We focus more on matters sustainability, supporting the private sector, first of all, to understand the concept of waste to value, as well as also influencing policy on areas that it can support the country to move from a linear to a circular economy. Nice to be here and nice to meet all of you. Thank you. Back to you, John.
Thank you so much, Amadi. So that's our blockbuster team and panelists who are going to be here with us this afternoon to be able to take us through their journey of how they've been able to implement bits and pieces of what the true zero waste strategy speak of. So to get us started, I just wanted to throw a snapshot on the scenario in Nairobi where most of us are really based. And what I can say is that Nairobi, the capital city of Kenya, has a size of 696 square kilometers, or say 296 square miles, with a population of 4.3%. So this population within this particular size generates about 3 metric tons of waste per day, 20% of which is actually recycled, with the potential to recycle as much as 80%. But now we have companies here and there who are doing a little bit of that, and we hope that they can be able to inspire other institutions and other companies, whether communities as well, to be able to take that particular journey. So for our first question, zero waste, as introduced by Susie and I think called the panel of Darius, is that it's a journey. You cannot be able to achieve zero waste right at go, but you go implement it stage by stage. So my question goes out to Amrish, Ebenezer, and Westrup and Jane, that what is one of the ways you are currently implementing zero waste or improved materials management at your facilities or companies or projects? And what kind of operations have they been anchored in? Maybe to start us off, I will ask Ebenezer. Maybe you can get us started.
Thank you, John. I think when you talk about zero waste, I'll admit we haven't reached there where you have zero waste, because even if you look at the hierarchy of waste, it basically states that the percentage that you'll take to the landfill is about 5%. So the aim here is to reduce the waste. And one of the projects that we have is working together with the government. That's the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in Kenya, where we were part of the team that were developing the EPR regulation, that is the Extended Producer Responsibility Regulation, that basically looks at having the producers get the obligation or of their products beyond consumption, meaning that if you have a product and you package it, then you have the responsibility of that product and packaging post consumption. So we're in that space trying to help the producer responsibility organizations set up and as well as increase awareness on separation of waste and source, because what that does is it helps you to be able to recover the items that would rather call waste. We use it as the concept of waste to value. So using that as input for production. The other area is that we work closely with the community. We have a project down at the coast. And interesting enough, the project itself is called COAST, but it's an acronym, meaning creating opportunities and alleviating poverty through sustainable trade. So work with the community, help them first of all to understand, have an understanding of financial literacy. The next thing is also to help them be able to develop business proposals and offer a linkage with financial institutions, because one of the challenges that you find with SMEs is access to financing. The other part that we look at, of course, in this case, is being able to work closely with the county government and the private sector. So there is a model that we implement. It's called PPCP, that is Public-Private Community Partnership. And lastly, is a project that we are conducting a study in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi, helping the countries to develop a roadmap to move from a linear to a circular economy. So out of the 3 countries, we were looking at plastics, paper, metals, glass, and organic waste. in general, just as for a snippet, we found that the largest or the largest volume generated of waste is organic waste, followed closely by plastics. But then 2 out of the 3 countries selected plastic as the priority waste stream. And we also developed a business case for a pilot project. So in essence, that will help the countries to kickstart a process to valorize the waste. For example, if it's plastic or organic waste, one of the countries selected organic waste. So that's what we are doing as the Kenya Private Sector Alliance under the Sustainable Inclusive Business. We call it a knowledge center here in Kenya. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Ebenezer. What you say, but I hope we can catch up on another session and talk about more about what you're doing at Capsule. So now I'd like to welcome Jane from Absa Bank. I know Absa Bank, you're doing a lot, and definitely you did significantly well when you were running from Barclays to Absa. Maybe you can take us through that journey and other small strategies that you're implementing at Absa. Jane?
Thanks, John. And as I said, I think most of the work we've been doing is mainly looking at our own internal operations and how we can be able to lead from the front, even as we look at how to support our clients. So some of the initiatives I'd speak to is, as I said, during the transition, and I think that's where we realize there's a lot of opportunity in reducing the waste, reusing and recycling. And one of the things during that transition, there was a lot of waste generated, whether it was steel, plastic, marketing collateral, when we talk about the billboards and all that. And so during that time, we took the opportunity to see how we can be able to reuse and recycle a lot of the waste that we generated. So looking at for example, the marketing collateral that was generated, we had a lot of billboards and banners just to bring our customers through that transition. And all those were used to actually make school bags, which were then given to school-going children. And we did focus on schools which are underprivileged, and were able to produce over 4,000 school bags. And those really did go a long way to help the children within those different schools. Around plastic waste, we had a lot of plastic waste, and again, working with our SMEs, we had great SMEs who worked with us during this journey, EcoPost being one of them, recycling all the plastic that we generated and using it to refurbish some of the mangrove walkboards in the coastal region. These mangrove walkboards mainly are used by women groups who use that as part of their ecotourism, and it supports their livelihoods. And so just being able to refurbish them, because most of them had essentially used wood, which had been eaten up by all the seawater. And so having a more sustainable product, which then can, in the conditions, especially down at the coast. And so that was the second one. Thirdly, I think a lot of electronic waste which was generated. We did generate over 1,500 electronic waste in terms of CPUs and computers and laptops. And what we did is to mainly work with schools. And so far we've identified 70 schools. We are recycling that e-waste in partnership with the We Center and setting up computer labs. So so far we've set up about 25 or 30 have been completed, with the rest being completed this side of the year. So this also helps us to drive digital inclusivity within the schools, and especially, again, looking at underprivileged schools where we can be able to expose children into the digital space and also give them a bit of a competitive advantage. So that has also been one of the projects we did throughout that rebranding process. But overall, it's also to see how then do we also look at the operations internally. As a financial institution, paper is one of the biggest waste that we generate. And so looking at how then do we recycle that paper, working again with local organizations such as Chandaria. I think we've been able to recycle all our paper for the last 10 plus or 15 years plus. And that has enabled us to reduce the waste. And so being sure that wherever this waste is going, it's being used appropriately, and it's also being disposed of in a proper way. And that is really critical for us, just to be able to look at the whole entire disposal. And then lastly, I think also working with organizations who can be able to separate the waste that we generate and being able to give us reportable emission have reduced, and being able to track that on a month on that, not only paper waste, but also acid battery disposal. How is it? How are they disposed? How are they recycled? And being sure we can track even the different components they are reused, and we also get those statistics. So I'll pause there, John, but I think those are some of the initiatives. I think the bigger conversation is now around how do we support our clients who are looking to do that? How do we support SMEs who are looking to be able to deliver innovative ways of recycling or using the waste that is available? I think then that becomes one of the bigger challenges that we've taken up. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Jen. You've done a lot, and you are definitely doing a lot. And I can see you're really tackling so many materials, right from paper, plastics, but you didn't talk about banknotes. Well, we'll get to that later. For now, I'd like to welcome Amrish, who is a professional consultant in the green building space. Amrish, you're involved definitely in the certification of projects, and definitely construction waste is one of the areas which you try to see that you minimize as much as possible to be able to have that project of yours considered green. So what have you been involved in, especially when it comes to reducing waste? Amrish?
Yeah, thanks, John. So yeah, as you said, we primarily work with clients and developers who who implement green building standards. We work on building performance. We look at sorry, these dogs are barking in the background. So we work with various building projects on how to optimize performance in terms of energy, water, materials, etc. And with one of the tools you work with, LEED, it has minimum requirements for your construction waste management and operational waste management. So on the construction waste management, there are minimum requirements to separate the waste and additional points for diverting various waste from landfills. So, 50% or 75%, and you achieve points from diverting that from landfills. And we've been pretty successful in achieving this with a lot of projects, especially, when we're in there early and implementing these waste management plans from the beginning. We're currently working on 5 LEED projects where we're doing it, and on all of them, we are achieving over 75% diversion from landfills, which is great. And it just shows you that, there's a lot of waste that people do take up if given the opportunity. So, it's exciting to see, and it's exciting to put forward in other projects. And on the operational side, we obviously, try and predict the amount of waste that a particular project will have an output of, and we try and size these, refuse rooms accordingly, looking at what type of waste streams there are, and actually sizing, the right size bins, which is obviously something that the True Waste tool looks like at as well. So, that's the limitation on the LEED side. I think, the gap is that's as far as it goes. Of course, there's the life cycle analysis and material selections, but, we're not very good at that in this part of the world. It's a very price sensitive market. So, there is a big gap there, but that's the extent of our work with, waste management on our projects. Thanks.
Wow, thanks a lot, Amrish. And I think you've really given us a perspective on how it happens at a construction management side. Now, I'd like to invite Westrup from East African Breweries to tell us a lot about what they are doing. Westrup.
Thank you very much, John. I think within this space, our strategy is, we coined it to be our Society 2030. So the entire Diageo family has a target, to achieve certain matrices within the sustainability space by 2030. And some of the things that we are doing locally around that space is to accelerate to a low carbon future. And here we aim to be carbon neutral in our direct operations by 2030. We still have quite a bit to go, but we've started that journey, and we're doing this by reusing and recycling our waste from our direct operations and zero waste to landfill through our supply chain. So by 2030, we hope that 100% of our packaging will be widely recyclable, with at least 60% made from recyclable material. Another big one for us is water. We are a big consumer of water, and so we've given ourselves a target that by 2030, every drink that we make will use 40% less water than the 2020 levels, and that by 2026, we'll replenish more water than we use in all our water-stressed areas. So we've invested in our wastewater treatment plant and water recovery plant, which will save us up to approximately 1.6 million hectoliters of water a year. We have also successfully reduced our water consumption by 27%. And we've managed to replenish about 485,000 cubic meters of water, which is now taken back to the communities. And this has been since 2021. About 82,000 water project beneficiaries across East Africa. And we've also invested quite heavily in water treatment and recovery plants, as mentioned earlier, within East Africa. We are also looking at the renewable energy space, and we are doing this in two ways, looking at biomass fuel and solar. So we intend to reduce our thermal carbon emissions by 95% a year. And these are huge projects. Looking at biomass, we have a plant here in Nairobi at the Thakkar plant. We have one in Kisumu, and we have one within our regional places in Uganda and Tanzania as well. And also this goes hand in hand with our solar plants. Additionally, we also have we've invested in effluent treatment that ensures wastewater is properly treated before discharge to the environment. And for this, we've given ourselves a target of 100% wastewater to be returned from our operations back into the environment safely. So those are the big ticket items I'd like to mention for this question. And you can see that they're really clearly identified, and they have clear targets. And we monitor this on a monthly basis to ensure that we're still on track. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Westrup, for that presentation. And definitely you're doing a lot at Efdl and on a larger scale, Diageo, to reduce your materials footprint. Now, you've all spoken well about the strategies that you're doing, and definitely all these initiatives or activities start from somewhere. Something definitely motivates you to begin this particular journey to reduce your waste. So my question to, I think, all of you, but I'll start with Claire, is that what is the greatest opportunity with improved materials management? And what was the primary incentive when your project or your company opted in for this zero waste journey or circularity approach towards materials management? Was it financial savings? Was it the interest to create jobs? Or was it pollution prevention? What was the primary motivation? It can also be a combination of both. So Claire, if you can get us started with this particular question.
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you for that. So, I mean, it might sound cliche on this, but it does cover the three targets that most of us go for, which is, of course, your environmental and then your social and economical benefits. So for what I consider what was our star facility, where we achieved a lot of this, the driver really at that point for our clients, where we ran the occupier services. So a lot of times you find you've achieved your technical certification as a facility, and the occupants come in, and then what next? You know, how do you carry forth with the green agenda? And so that's where we sat proper, and our sale was just as a value add. We actually were not particularly pursuing the net zero aspect, which has more recently become, you know, center stage for a lot of us, but it was as a value add for our services in the occupier management space. Slowly, our environmental impact management programs became part of our KPIs to our clients, and they became part of business as usual. And therefore, we did not even pursue certification. So the obvious became, we actually have a star site that we believe achieved 99% diversion from landfill. And we actually did not pursue certification because at that point, again, it seemed to be the right thing to do every day. And the way we managed this is that we looked at everything that came into the site, the byproducts that the manufacturing plant produced, and every single item was reused. 2 byproducts very quickly. One of them was converted into briquettes, such that the briquettes were given back to the farmers who were supplying the raw material to the plant to process their fueling issues, right? Another byproduct was used as a packing material and also as a furniture filling material. So we bought a shredder. Again, we took initiative as the occupier manager, and we bought a shredder for the client. We would shred the byproducts and actually sell it to furniture manufacturers. And so, of course, at each of these steps and levels, we would introduce a job. So there you go, you've introduced new opportunities for people to benefit socially and economically. And environmentally, we would comfortably say that we diverted about 99% of the waste from that particular plant. Other initiatives included, we had a cafeteria on site, and each of the products that came out of the process of either producing food or the waste that people did not eat was weighed and sold to pig farmers. And therefore, we would track that per plate and say, what was the impact we'd have had if this went straight to the landfill? And so we never had to pay for trucks to pick up trash. We actually would only have the impact of people coming in to collect these recyclables. Another opportunity that we saw very clearly was as the cartons would come in with some of the raw material that the client needed, and they had liners. We hired a tailor to cut these liners into trash-sized bags, and we would use those liners in our trash cans, where we would separate at source, at strategic points in the office. So we've hired a tailor. We have trash liners. We're not using plastic, and those trash liners were reusable. And because we're already separated at source where people are sitting, we did not have to clean these. And so somehow we did not particularly talk of our achievements at that point. It became business as usual. And there was monetary gain to the client because for each of these items that was sold to people who were reusing or whatever processes they were using the products for, the client actually now set a target for us to give them money, a credit back out of these initiatives. So a lot more can be spoken about, but I'll hand it back to you, John. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Claire, for what you're doing. And definitely I can see that maybe one motivation led to another motivation, or open up your eyes to basically see that you're solving another problem in the process. Or at times it can be from one side to the other side as far as the motivation or incentive is concerned. Thanks a lot for that. Maybe when it comes to incentive, I now want to throw this question to Jane. What was the primary motivation for ABSA to really go circular with the materials management at your operations? Okay, so while we wait for Jen to be ready, maybe I can throw this question to Ebenezer. Ebenezer, definitely you've worked with numerous communities, especially when it comes to managing waste, but wherever you've worked at, what was the primary motivation that really got people psyched up to really participate in these programs that you are getting over to them?
Yeah, thank you, John, for the question. One of the driving force was that is that we look at sustainability as a broader impact to the economy. And so the thinking was, how can we then ensure that the private sector has an impact to the economy? Because if you look at sustainability, it has 3 parts. Ideally, if you look at the basic one, of course, now people talk about a different model where you can look at 5 different elements. But if we to start with, we'll look at people, planet, and profit. So on the planet part, of course, then the driving force is the environment. For example, if you take an example of organic waste, you'll notice that waste is one of the biggest contributors to contributing to greenhouse gases, emissions of greenhouse gases. So if you're able to reduce that waste, then you notice that you're also contributing positively to your environment. So that's one motivating factor. And the other one, of course, is within the profits. I talked about the element or the concept of waste to value. So if you use what people consider as waste as input for production, then you have an opportunity to create a business. The definition of entrepreneurs is always that a person who comes with an idea to solve a problem. So the problem you're solving here is that there is waste that is ideally going to the landfill, and you can make it or convert it to a valuable product. Claire just talked about manufacturing of briquettes and pellets. You can do that out of organic waste. You can do that out of sludge, human waste as well. There's one project that was being implemented while I was working for an INGO back in the day, and they did this in Nakuru County, where they were manufacturing briquettes and pellets from sludge, but they had a unique mix that they had with a little bit of sawdust and also market waste. To be able to make a nice mix out of it, and also look at the element of cost. So the other part, when you talk about the motivating factor, is also aligning to the country's targets. You talk about the nationally determined contributions. You also look at the Sustainable Development Goals, and one of them is sustainable production and consumption. So those are our driving force as the Kenya Private Sector Alliance in implementing these projects, and that is why we design them in a way that we align them to working with the community. As well as also look at the pillars, supporting pillars. So that's why I talked about the policy. The policy, one of the agendas of Gbci is to create an enabling environment for businesses to operate, right? So if you look at one of the supporting pillars is policy, regulations, laws. So I mean, I could go on and on, but these are some of the few motivators for us to engage in such projects, John.
Well, thanks a lot, Ebenezer, for that. Definitely, there are a myriad of motivations. Clearly, you can see that you as project managers have a particular motivation, and also the communities that you work with also have their own motivation. And I can see at least there is no clash between the two. It was able to dovetail and work properly. So thank you for that. And now maybe to Westrup Mwai of EFDL. What was the primary motivation for EFDL? I know you have multiple facilities throughout East Africa, probably in different countries, there were different motivations. But as a company, what was the primary motivation, really?
So John, for us, the way we look at it is as a group as a whole. And what we have committed to do is to do business the right way, right across from what we call grain to glass, right from the farmer up till the final drink that you put in your hand. We want to ensure that we've done business the right way, and we want to be the industry leader in sustainability. So we went ahead and set very ambitious targets to preserve water. We are a big consumer of water, so we put targets to preserve water, to accelerate to a low carbon world, and to become sustainable by design. We are in the same economy where we see poverty, inequality, climate change, water stress, biodiversity loss, and we asked ourselves, what can we as a business do to ensure that our people, our suppliers, the community around us, our operations, our customers, and our consumers, and basically the society at large, they thrive as a result of our business. So that meant really working with our whole value chain, the people, the resources, and the environment that contribute to our success. Like I said, right from grain to glass. And this I can say for us as EABL, we have already started to see the results. I mean, we've created jobs for our locals within the supply chain. We've empowered about 150,000 smallholder farmers in East Africa. We provide economical empowerment for marginalized groups. We have a keen focus on working with people with disabilities within the corporate and across the value chain. We've saved money and conserved resources. We've reduced our greenhouse gas emissions. And this year we are celebrating our 100 years centenary celebration. And what we challenged ourselves is, what can we do to ensure that our business is sustainable and will be in existence 100 years from now? And the only way we can do that is through adopting sustainability and more so looking keenly within the circular economy. And one of the key pillars was this, what we're discussing today, the waste management. So it aligns very well across, you know, from financial reward to creating jobs, and ensuring that everyone within the value chain has that shared value. So that was really the incentive, to see how we can create that shared value for everyone within our value chain.
Thanks a lot, Westrup. And definitely I can see for you at EABL, it's more or less holistic from an ESG perspective, because you want to address all aspects around environmental, social, and governance issues. Thanks a lot. Now, I come back to you, Jen, at some point. I think we lost you briefly. You weren't able to turn on mic, but I wanted to ask you, as Absa Bank, what was the primary motivation for you to pick that circular approach to managing your waste materials?
Thanks, John. And forgive the two logins there. I think I'm having a challenge with fluctuating network. So for us at Absa, I think it's part of the commitment that we have made to do business right. And I think many of the other speakers have already alluded to it, whether you're looking at the 3 Ps or the 5 Ps, and just being able to bring everything together when you look at people, planet, and profit, and being able to find a middle ground which ensures that all of them thrive, even as the business thrives. So for us, first, it's the right thing to do as a business, but also the fact that we are a business and it is good for business. And I think one of the areas which you mentioned that I didn't talk about at the first point, and is because I wanted to talk about it at this instance, is because most of the time, I think when you're looking at sustainability, it's looked at how expensive it is, or it is it's something that you do once you get to a certain level as an organization. And I think for us, some of the initiatives that we're doing were to help us understand the clients and to be able to have products and propositions which would speak to the clients. So for example, looking at efficiency, and one of the ways we've been looking at efficiency for us at Absa is using the IFC Edge certification, and just looking at efficiency, water efficiency, energy efficiency, and built material efficiency. So the biggest opportunity, of course, is on water and energy, because built material, the buildings have been existing for a while. So we can already be able to look at the efficiency there. But on water and energy, one of the things we did is to look at all our facilities as an institution. So we're looking at about 85 plus facilities, the branches, and also the headquarters, and just look at how are we operating from that efficiency perspective. How are we using our water? How are we using our energy? And baselining that on the IFC Edge certification. And we're able to course correct and through retrofit. So we've retrofitted all our facilities to be more energy efficient, and we've also done the same for water. And why I say it's good for business is because we've been able to see a direct impact on our operational cost. So of course, the initial investments.
Oh, sorry, you're back, Jen, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I don't know at which point you lost me. So in terms of operational efficiency, we've been able to benefit from that as an organization, looking at amounts such as north of 10 million every year on savings on electricity bills and savings on water bills as well. So first, it's good for business over and above being the right thing to do. And I think that has helped us also get to understand our clients and help us to transition our clients who are looking to be more efficient in whichever space, and whether they're using edge or lead or they're looking at it from a waste perspective through, I think then it gives us a better view of that. In terms of our sustainability commitment as well, we have committed to be a net zero organization by 2030. And so of course that becomes one of the things we are trying to drive through all the initiatives that we're doing and all the programs that we're doing. And of course, the biggest one of all is, as I say, coming back to how do we support our clients through that. So for us, the motivation is, it is the right thing to do as a business. It is good for business. And of course, communities and people thrive as we go along this journey with them. So for us, it's holistic and it looks at the end-to-end, both internally and from our customers' perspective. Thanks, John.
Right, thanks a lot, Jane, for that. And I think also from the ABSA side, clearly it's from an ESG perspective. And the beauty about it is that you've been able to experience the benefits of looking at it holistically. Maybe now to get a little bit deeper into the true certification system. Well, the true certification system emphasizes the 7 R's, which are refuse waste, redesign, reduce, remanufacture. Now, those are the upstream strategies. And then you have a reuse, repurpose, recycle, and composting, which are the downstream. Now, maybe just a question to any of you. Feel free to respond to it. Which ones are your favorite? And they can be your favorite, but then which ones have you found to be very effective for your operations and for your company? Maybe if I start with Amrish, on your construction projects, which ones have you found to be effective and which one is your favorite?
Yeah, John, thanks. I'm not sure if we're the best to answer this question. I'm sure the ABLs or ABSA might be more useful, but I guess maybe I can speak about the tool itself. We focus so much on the downstream waste. We focus on the end waste that's going into landfills, and there's this whole missed opportunity up at the upstream. Where we can reduce and repair and et cetera. So, and I think this is where this true waste tool really, comes into play. It's showing how we can, forget about all the downstream waste. How do we ensure there's no waste there left, in the end of the day, right? We don't want any waste. Waste is inefficient, and if we can just tackle all that upstream, that's super. I'm guessing the rest of the guys will talk about how they've done it on their businesses, but it's all about the bottom line. It's all about the money, saving waste. Waste is an inefficiency. Saving waste saves you money. These are simple business, commercial decisions that can really help companies out. So I'll leave it at that and pass it over to the other panelists.
Thanks for your honesty, Amrish. Now I turn it to Claire. What's your favorite and which has proved to be more effective? They may not be the same, they can be different, but hey, there is a favorite and there is an effective one. Claire.
Maybe I could use again our star site, repurpose. We were welcoming innovation from every level of the staff complement, and again, innovation does not have to be sophisticated and technologically mind-blowing. It's just taking ideas from people and doing things better. So repurpose. We saw people come up and have ideas on how to reuse some of the obvious waste that we're constantly producing every single minute. I mentioned, packaging materials. Someone said, get a tailor in and we'll sew these into bags, for our trash. We never had to buy trash bags and we never had to use polythene. And so that was just someone's idea that we took on board. Everyone had a voice. And then we also mentioned, so we also employed fairly knowledgeable engineers, technical people with know-how on their hands. And we had a lot of machinery that we had to manage and run. And we would give the opportunity to these people to actually fabricate. We set up a workshop and they would fabricate and repair broken down items out of sophisticated machines that were in the manufacturing plant. And so yes, reuse and repurpose would be favorite for me because it was tangible and it was obvious and the joy came across everyone's face on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. So very quickly, Widera, which one is your favorite and which one has proved effective for EABL?
Thanks, John. I don't know if I have a favorite, but we have focused on, I would say, 3: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Reduce, as I had mentioned earlier, we've purposed to reduce, by 2030, that every drink we make will use 40% less water than 2020 levels. And I think this is a critical pillar because to reduce the consumption of raw materials, it's within our powers. I think it's easier to reduce consumption than long-term, say, repurposing or recycling. So I think a key pillar for us is reducing. Once we look across the business and we see how much can we reduce, is it by the water we spend? Is it by the other raw materials that we use? Reducing is a big one. We also reuse a lot. Our bottles, our packaging is reusable and recyclable, but we do reuse our bottles. We take them out into the market, we bring them back in, we clean them up, and they're reused again. So that has been a very good solution for us because once the product has reached the end of its lifespan, it's assessed to see whether it can be refurbished and reused again. And so that returnable bottle method is very good for us because it reduces our carbon footprint overall across the value chain. And of course, recycling. So recycling is also big for us. Talking about our packaging, we mentioned that by 100% of our packaging will be widely recyclable by 2030. And this is a huge one because, we are looking here at our source of, our paper, our board, our paper and board packaging. And we also intend to reduce packaging. So it also falls within the reducing pillar and the recycling pillar. So I would say those are the 3 key ones that we picked because, we picked 3 big ones that we can, as a company, achieve. And I would say those are the ones within the true program that we're looking at. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Widera, for that response. So now we have about 4 questions which are coming from the audience. Please keep your questions coming in. The speakers are going to respond to them very shortly. But for now, I just want to go back to Jane, just to pick your minds to know which one is your personal favorite, but then again, which one has proved to be effective for the company?
Yeah, thanks, John. I think for where I sit as a financial institution, sometimes it's hard to pick which is the favorite because I think when I look at the internal footprint of the organization, it might not be much, and we might have used in some of the examples as I gave, reuse, repurpose, or recycle. So for us, the most favorite would be whatever the client is looking to be supported on, because I think that's where the impact is in how we support the clients in whichever of the 7 areas that they're looking to be able to reduce their waste. But that said, I think recycling has really helped us, and I guess I know Claire said reuse and repurpose as 2 different ones, and I guess it's depending on the lens you're looking at it with. Reuse and repurpose has really played a big role in most of the initiatives that we've been able to do, and it has helped us to be able to extend the life and find better use in the extended life for either the communities or for mostly for the communities, I'd say. But I think just looking at the experience from the work we've done retrofitting our facilities and what would have been if the design was done at the probably with that in mind initially, I think, and I'm probably introducing an area that does not exist, but I think looking at it in terms of the investment that is required, even for example, for the retrofit work that we did, if at all the buildings have been built with a consideration of what water efficiency and energy efficiency looks like, whether it's the building design, the ratio of window to wall, and all the aspects that you look at, I think it becomes also much cheaper for anyone who's looking to be able to create efficiencies within their office, within their buildings, within their houses, even at the personal level. So I'd say probably having this in mind at the initial stage of design is quite critical. But for us, reuse and repurpose, just to answer your question, has been our greatest beneficiary. Yeah.
Wow, thanks a lot, Jane. And maybe lastly to Ebenezer, the favorite and the most effective.
Thanks, John, for the question. I think your question is very broad because I was thinking at from the perspective of the private sector. And within the private sector, we have a number of industries. So I'll pick a few. For example, if you take the ones that deal with electronics, and I'll talk about repair and also refurbishing those machines. For example, we have WeCenter that does that. If you talk about plastics, because just last year in October, we launched the Kenya Plastics Pact, and I'll talk about refuse. And refuse, ideally, you're looking at eliminating of problematic plastic. And in this case, you'll talk about single-use plastic. The second one, second favorite that I'll talk about within the plastic sector, then it will be reuse. You using that item several times before you get to dispose of it. So I think if I take those two sectors, then those two will be the favorites that I will pick.
Right, thanks, Ebenezer. So I think for my last question before I open it up to the audience's questions, which I'll be able to read, and they are directed to some of you, the speakers. And probably at this stage, I would like also to invite back Jared, just in case you ask some questions for Jared. So Amrish, at least you've been exposed to the True Advisor program. And I just wanted to understand from you, how has the experience been with it? And also, Amadi, I think you've had a chance to maybe look at the reference guide, the documentation, which I think helps True Advisor really to go through and be able to sit for the exams and be able to be certified as a True Advisor. How is the material content like, and based on the experience as a practitioner, how have you been able to find it? Amrish, maybe you can go first.
Sure, thanks, John. Yeah, so look, we just, I personally just started the True Waste Advisory course, and I've had a look at the first couple of modules, so quite new to it. But you know, obviously it goes much deeper, right? It looks at all these various waste streams. It's interesting to start really thinking outside of you know, the focus area that we're in, which is very much, you know, building performance, building science, building physics, and obviously, you know, the other related aspects around that on water and you know, material selection. So it goes a lot deeper, which is really interesting, and also interesting to see you know, I guess the huge amount of opportunities that come with it, the huge financial savings that, you know, a company can you know, gain through looking at this and assessing their inputs and outputs. You know, looking and understanding things like the job creation that happens with this. There's you know, reading into it over the last few weeks, you know, seen and read some other literature, just the phenomenal amount of job creation that's happens outside of, you know, just the landfill process, right? You have all these other upstream opportunities that are created. And I think there's a lot of data coming out internationally on some of these numbers. And of course, you know, just that pollution reduction is, you know, such an important part as well. And I think somewhere like Kenya, we often it's the biggest gap, what's the biggest shortfall in our certification programs. We're getting much better at being more energy efficient, focusing on good passive design, reducing the amount of lighting and HVAC or air conditioning that's needed in buildings, minimizing the amount of water, but the materials is still a huge problem. And we're very unconscious about our waste inputs and outputs. So it's interesting to see this tool on the market and see the uptake from the industry now, and I think it will be successful. And looking around and hearing some of the stories from EABL and Gbci, I think there could be a very interesting tool to tackle an important issue. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Amrish. And with that, I'd just like to bring the official questions to an end and now open it up to the questions which are coming in from our lovely audience. And the first one, I think, well, it's from an anonymous attendee, and it's also not directed to any one of the speakers, but I'll just read it out, and probably maybe a couple of you can go for it. So the question is, what does it mean waste was recycled, reused? And then the question goes on to say, most companies nowadays resell their waste to specialized suppliers to be recycled, but end up in landfills abroad due to lack of transparency or visibility in the supply chain. How can we then claim for the waste to be recycled? Now, I think this one I'll direct it to you, Amadi, because you've really worked with a lot of our companies, especially when it comes to transparency and making sure that they reuse that material. What can you be able to say about this particular question, Amadi?
Yeah, thank you, John. I think the element where the question goes to waste being sold and going to the landfill, it actually depends, because if we take the plastic sector as an example, you'll find that there are recyclers who buy, let's say HDPE, PET, but then probably they are dealing with one type of polymer, because a PET bottle has two types. There is a PET part, but the top is HDPE. So you find if they don't have a line to recycle the HDPE, that might go back to the landfill. So it's a matter of increasing awareness, first of all, as well as promoting and ensuring that the infrastructure matches our ambition. For example, if we talk about separation of waste at source, one thing that we found out in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi is that people are willing to separate their waste at source, which is at the household. But what happens when the waste is collected? It is all put again into one. So it beats the logic of you separating your waste at home, and then when it is collected, everything is put all in one and taken to the landfill. And then now you find the informal waste speakers going now to separate the waste at the landfill and taking it back to the recyclers. So there are a number of issues in waste management that require the supporting pillars. First of all, I talked about the policy, then there's the infrastructure, and infrastructure requires resources. So that leads me to the next point, which is the availability of financing for you to invest in infrastructure. Then those supporting pillars will help us to ensure that we reduce on what goes back to the landfill. But ideally, also within the regions, you find that there is an increased collaboration between the countries to ensure that the policies are in tandem with one another. If you look at the East African region, Rwanda started off by eliminating use of single-use plastic, the carrier bags that are below 60 microns. Kenya did ban the carrier bags that are below 30 microns. I think Tanzania did only the film that you cover on at the top of a bottle for beverages. So I think those are the dynamics that exist, but of course we still have a long way to go.
All right, thank you so much, Amadi, for that response. And I can see questions coming in thick and fast. So I think I'll be very quick with it. And then also I will need you maybe to respond to them very quickly so that we can be able to address a large majority of them. But for a quick point, I just wanted to invite back the True team to talk about the transparency of the True certification system, because I think it can be able to solve or respond to one of the concerns which was raised in that particular question about where those materials end up. So maybe Susie, you can take that one up.
Yeah, thank you, John. And I really always appreciate hearing what's happening locally. I clearly don't have that experience there in your region, but as for True, wherever you are in the world, we have, this series of 81 credits, and especially one in your diversion reporting, we will be requesting, where is this data coming from? Like, what's the backup? So for at least 1 month over that 12-month performance period, we want to see invoices or, this chain of custody, if you will, of where those materials are going, just to prove that. We won't, that's the third party integrity piece of this, is that we have to maintain that high level of transparency. And then in addition to that, that's kind of a minimum program requirement, but within the recycling credits, you will earn an additional credit for looking at all of your material streams and providing that, where did this material go? What did it become? Kind of doing that deeper dive, just so that we can all begin to be holding these service providers, again, who say they're recycling, to that higher level. And, it takes time for some of these changes to happen in the marketplace. We have those that are ready, that are doing the right thing and are ready to show that off, and others that are still a little leery of being so transparent. And so those are the ones we need to be having this conversation with, and rewarding the ones that are doing the right thing. And hopefully then the market shifts to support that model.
Thanks a lot, Susie, for that intervention and explaining or clarifying how data can actually be tracked, and also how do you stop such kind of practices where materials don't end up, you never know where the materials end up. So very quickly, I think this one is a question also from an anonymous attendee, but it's directed to Jane Wayaki of ABSA. Kindly elaborate what happens to the plastic posts used for boardwalk construction at the coast once the posts reach their useful end life. Jane? Yeah,
thanks, John. I definitely don't have the science behind how long the plastic would last. But what I'd say is, because now it's an ecosystem which has been created between the boardwalks and the organizations that do the recycling. So if at all there are any refurbishment works that need to be done, so the same organization, EcoPost, would be engaged to come and remove the plastic which needs to be replaced and replace. And EcoPost looks at the entire recycling of plastic. So what can be reused, they reused. What can be repurposed, they repurposed. What can be used to remanufacture, they will do that. And what needs to be disposed, they dispose of correctly. So it's an entire ecosystem which is looked at, and therefore it would be covered as part of the work that is done within any walkboard refurbishment work down at the coast.
All right, thanks a lot, Jane. And maybe just to clarify that to the person who did ask the question, is that ABSA works with a technical company responsible for putting up those posts. So which means at the end of the useful life of those particular posts, ABSA will invite back the particular company to be able to repurpose those materials to make sure that they don't end up as waste again, which was the primary intention of converting them into those particular posts. So I move on to the next question, and it's from Okeke Uche Chuku, and his question goes to Ebenezer, and it is that since Ebenezer works with the private sector, has he worked with medical sector, pharmaceutical companies? Which method have they adopted most? For example, In Nigeria, expired and damaged drugs with their packaging are destroyed through incineration. That's not WTE, but clear burning and releasing of toxic gases into the atmosphere. What have other agencies like the Drug Regulatory Agency you work with adopted? That's from Okeke. Ebenezer?
Thank you, John. I think I was losing you at some point, so I'm not so sure, but I had something to do with medical waste. So is my assumption correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Ebenezer.
Okay. So within the Kenyan context, the EPR regulation had 19 waste recommended. But after it went through the Attorney General, they were reduced to 5. So we have the hazardous waste and the non-hazardous waste. So we find that for the medical packaging, to be specific, then it also includes it includes the medical packaging. Now, medicine is regulated by different authorities because you have different regulators within the market. But now for the extended producer responsibility. For medical waste, of course, what they do, they have a number of ways that they deal with it. One is in incineration, especially with the with let's say organs, and sometimes then they do bury, but because these are hazardous waste that you can just dispose them anyhow in a landfill. So it's treated separately with household waste. So you cannot mix medical waste with household waste. And within the Kenyan context, of course, then we have the hospitals, for example, will have a contract with a private entity that will take care of their waste. So that's how it is handled within the Kenyan context and also within the private sector. Because of course, we have public hospitals and we also have private hospitals.
Thanks a lot, Amadi, for that response. So quickly, maybe let me go to a question from Enverity Claim, and it's to Westrup of EFDL. What is your pull effect as a company on looping in participation of staff and communities through your CSR projects? Is it possible to also invest in carbon footprint reduction, in bracket influence in tree planting, through your chain of dealers, schools, and communities? Westrup?
Thank you, John. What I would say is the conversation around sustainability and especially the environmental concept of sustainability, it has to be done and adopted across the value chain. It's not something that you can say we as EABL will do alone. You need your suppliers, you need your distributors. And what has worked for us is the leadership has owned it and inculcated it into the core of our corporate strategy. So each individual knows what they're bringing to the table in terms of sustainability. So if you're in supply, even if it's just one KPI and you say that in 2022, I am going to achieve X, which will directly impact our sustainability agenda in this way. And that really has helped the business. We've come a long way, and it's now that these things like adopting it into the individual KPIs, the team KPIs that are not necessarily seen as being within the sustainability space. So what I would say is, first of all, ensure that you have ownership from the top. Once ownership from the top is there and it's cascaded throughout the business, it will work very well because then your staff is on board. Secondly, ensure that your communities are involved. For us, we've planted 12.5 million trees in the past decade with a success rate of 85%. And we couldn't do this alone. It's through partnerships. We are members in the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. We are members in Gbci. We are members in KEPRO. We are always learning new and innovative ways of doing things and doing things better across the value chain. So what I would say is, if you're thinking about it for your organization, just realize that you cannot do it alone. Partnerships will scale up whatever efforts you're doing. And secondly, ensure you have your leadership owning this concept of circular economy, of sustainability, whichever pillar you select, ensure that it's owned through your value chain and through the business, from your leadership and throughout the business. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks, Westrup. And very quickly, because I know there's so many questions and we have to cap this session at the top of the hour. That's at 5 o'clock local time in Kenya. So I have this question from Adrian Lambert, and I'll direct it. It's to Amrish, but I think Susie, feel free to jump in after Amrish responds to it. So the question goes, though other lead experts may also chime in. Yeah, good, great. So what are some of the common challenges in pursuing True, coming from a lead consultant's point of view? Our team is quite knowledgeable in lead documentation, but we want to introduce True to our clients and would like to know some common hurdles. So Amrish or Susie, feel free to respond to that.
Yep, maybe I'll hand it over to Susie because we haven't actually started any True projects yet. But my short answer to that is not many, and I think it's very easy to move on from a lead AP accreditation. If you understand that rating tool, I think switching over or moving on to a True Waste, although different in the content, very very similar. So Susie, I guess you'd have more of an answer there.
That's a great tee up, and I appreciate your confidence in that. I think you're exactly right. We've seen many lead consultants around the world who have been doing lead projects for years take on this as a new offering for their customers. The process, because it is all GBCI, is very similar. You have preliminary reviews, you get comments back, you have a chance for a final review. So if you're familiar kind of with the process of lead, it becomes quite similar to that of True. If you've especially done lead for O&M, that is, because True focuses more on operations, that's traditionally even a closer connection if you have that experience. But I do highly encourage you taking the True Advisor. Navigating a True certification without a True Advisor is certainly doable, but not highly recommended. There is that kind of the jargon, the definitions. We all hopefully, how it was 2008 when I took the lead AP. So I knew there was a lot of new terms for me back then that I began to understand and then be able to implement on lead projects. And it'll be the same way with True, while not rocket science, certainly something that we recommend. And Mihir is put into the chat, but we will have a promo code for those of you who are interested in taking the True Advisor, to thank you for your attendance and time today, and to grow this movement in the region so that you feel prepared to move forward. So we look forward to how we can collaborate with you building that in the future.
Oh, thank you so much, Susie, for that response. And I think now this is sort of like a follow-up question to that one, but then I will want to direct this to Daria because Daria has been able to implement certification of True facility in South Africa. So the question is that True is a certification which can be applied in various countries around the world. Were there any challenges or barriers in implementing the True strategies in South Africa? Or how are you able to navigate the whole process and get your facility certified? Daria. Daria, your mic is still off, if you don't mind.
Especially, we have experienced that there were some challenges to find some recycling companies that can recycle some types of wastes. But for example, in Europe or in US, these wastes can be recycled when we compare to South Africa. But other credits are not challenging for plant. So I can comment on that.
John, if I could just add to, because we have so many facilities all over the world, and again, we all think about recycling as this first thing, and it is a critical part of the equation, but it isn't everything. And so like Daria's saying, you know, the reductions and all of these policies that are really company-wide for Colgate-Palmolive, that's where they're achieving, you know, some performance. One thing that we haven't talked about a lot today, and I'll leave you all with, is that a diversion rate is not just a recycling rate. A diversion rate includes your reduction and your reuse. So when you begin to quantify those materials that you're reducing and reusing, it creates a higher diversion rate. And those are the types of materials, you know, and activities we really want to incentivize. That's why all this upstream behavior is what makes True so possible in, you know, not just South Africa, which is a pretty developed country, but like in other less developed countries who have achieved True certification as well. So.
Thanks a lot, Susie. And I think we've come to the end of the session part. Please, if you don't mind, I'd like you to accommodate one question from Abdurrahman Mohammed, who is asking, what would you say is the biggest way to motivate small-scale enterprises to engage in waste elimination at source or even downstream? It makes sense for large-scale and medium-scale businesses, but what is the argument for small-scale enterprises with a very frugal budget? Thank you. So who can take that one up? It's actually tossed up in the air. Anybody can go for it.
I can take it, John.
All right, go ahead.
For SMEs, you notice that they are always the starting point for innovation. Now, in terms of looking at the contribution to sustainable development goals, that will be one area to motivate them to contribute to reducing waste, because they also look at growing, right? And at one point, they aim at being like one of the big companies that you're talking about. So that will be the motivating factor as they grow. Because there are a number of things that they will also be looking at, be it governance, structures. If you look at the way they also include the reporting in terms of financing. And we also talk about ESG, that includes it all. And we talk about the environmental, social, and governance aspect. So when you're talking to the SMEs, these are the aspects you will be talking to them as they aim to grow. Thank you, John.
Right, thank you, Amadi, so much for keeping it very brief. I can see Mihir is back here with us. So thank you so much, all of you, for participating, the speakers. Thank you all for also responding to the questions, Susie coming back, Daria, and the rest. So now I'd like to turn it back to Mihir to close the session out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. That was a wonderful session. I would really like to thank all the speakers, panelists for the time and the valuable inputs that they've given. It has really ignited a lot of talks in the region, and we really look forward to working and assisting you at all stages in this zero waste journey. And thank you all. And just want to let you know that you all can reach out to us. Me and Susie are there at all times to help you out.
All right, thank you all. And I think that's the end of it all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. We'll be sharing everything in the future as well, the recording and the slides. So appreciate everything from everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.